line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team at Mississippi Farm Bureau. Jason Baker joins us right now. If you have watched Southern Miss football games, you have heard and seen Jason Baker and lots of other stuff too. He has worked with basically every sport on the Southern Miss campus. Just a massive Thursday night. We're on the eve of a football game for Southern Miss. But Jason, maybe I'm being hyperbolic here. Maybe I'm overplaying this, but this feels like as big a game as there has been for Southern Miss in quite some time because it's got a chance to be win number 5. It's a Thursday night game. There's a national television audience. Kind of keeping pace in the Sun Belt. There's just a lot riding on this one.
Yeah, there is, Richard. And, doesn't it just have the feeling to me it'll put some validation behind what Will Hall's been singing and preaching. And to me, I almost believe there's some validation to, I think he's a little ahead of schedule. I think he's a little ahead of maybe where people thought this team would be. And I think this sort of the game, while he's got some really good wins and some really good battles, look, I think right now, if there's such a thing as a quality loss, you look to the loss against Liberty, you battle a Liberty team that's currently 7-1, and you battle them to 4 overtimes. Your Tulane's only loss of the season, by the way, right now, the win that you gave them, or the win that you picked up in the only loss that they had of the season. And to me, like, this is that rubber stamp game that you can put your stamp on the season. And this is where it turned. And so, no, I don't think you're overplaying it. And I think Will Hall would echo that as well if you were asking him that question of how big of a game is it. It's that big to put some validation behind maybe the success that they've had in the last couple of weeks.
You know, if this game is being played a year ago, you don't feel great about your chances. Billy Napier had that thing humming in Lafayette. He takes the Florida job, has a bunch of players that leave, and so it's a little bit of a kind of press the restart button. They go 2-0 to start the year and then lose 3 straight games to Rice, ULM, and South Alabama. But since then, they've won 2 in a row. They went to Marshall and won. They went to Arkansas State and won. It's an Arkansas State team that Southern Miss beat a couple of weeks ago as well. When you look at the Ragin' Cajuns, this Louisiana team, what stands out for you?
To me, they're the most puzzling team in the Sun Belt. They were picked to win the Western Division in the Sun Belt. And I think a glimpse of that on last week in the win over Arkansas State. I think they gave us that glimpse of the team that we thought, because of the transition, right? They hired within. So they went and got Michael DeSormo off of Billy Napier's staff and said, this is our guy. This is who we want. This is who it should be. And so when they make statements, hires like that, you often assume the continuity continues, right? And so while he's not Billy Napier, just as you said, boy, he had it kind of humming, right? Look, he put that into all of college football. And so now, under the assumption, the pretense that they were going to be the team that everybody thought they were. Now, granted, losing Lewis last year obviously hurt. I mean, a generational type player, a program-defining type player. You knew they would take a step back at the quarterback. But you thought, okay, they're still going to be the team and the program that Billy Napier built. But they just haven't been. But then they go and Ben Woolridge shows you he sets most passing TDs in a game with 5 in that win over Arkansas State last. So he shows you a little glimpse of what everyone preseason. And of course, I know preseason polls are worth the paper that they're written on. But at the same token, enough people thought we'll put them first in the Western Division. And so they gave them. And so there's that hint of me within me tomorrow night that says, careful. This is that was picked one in the Western Division of the Sun Belt, which is, as well respected of a Group of 5 conference as there is in the country. And so you just have to understand that's the caliber of opponent, at least from the preseason standpoint, that was coming in here tomorrow night. And they showed a little glimpse of that, last week.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt our conversation just for a second. We're going to hang up the video stream and we're going to give you a call. You're breaking up a little bit, and I want to be sure that everybody can hear you on the radio piece of it as well. So, Borky, let's see if we can call him right now. we'll finish up this conversation. One of the things that stands out to me, and we'll get to Jason on this when we come back in a second, is this is the matchup that jumped off across all sports to me when we saw that Southern Miss was going to the Sun Belt Conference. Lafayette and Hattiesburg, not that far apart, 3.5, maybe 4 hours apart when you look at geographically where they are. Two schools where baseball matters a ton. Two schools where maybe they're not as far down the road as they would like to be in basketball. And two schools where there is a commitment to winning in football. Jason, I don't know if you heard where I started. When it was announced that Southern Miss was going to the Sun Belt, this was the school that I circled where I said, I can't wait to watch these matchups. And it doesn't really matter what sport we're talking about. Just so happens that we've got a really high-stakes football game the first time that these two meet because of geographic proximity and commitment and history of success and all of those things.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the whole point of why Southern Miss had to get out of Conference USA and into the Sun Belt, right, was for this geographical rivalry to be able to partner with schools within driving distance, within regional-type fan bases that think like them, that talk like them, that in a relative scale have budget sizes the same as them, that aren't in these big city markets, that are in relative towns that have similar lifestyles as them, and to me, that have this natural kind of competitive nature amongst them, right? While El Paso, Texas is one of the great cities that I've ever been to, the cultural similarities there between Hattiesburg and El Paso, Texas are is about as far away as they are in terms of traveling distance. But the cultural similarities between Lafayette, Louisiana, and Hattiesburg, Mississippi, pretty close, to be honest with you. And there's a lot in common between those towns. And so there'll be people flooding on the campus tomorrow, I suspect, that'll have a lot in common, and it just makes for the rival. And you're right, Richard. Look, it's spilled over. I mean, a couple of years ago, the dugouts cleared in a baseball game, and that's not been forgotten. And, this has been a long-time rival, and these two teams have matched up with each other in a bowl game before. And so we've seen these kind of matchups and have familiarity with each other throughout the years. And so it's not an uncommon opponent that you're just playing for the sake of playing them. And so, yeah, it's got that feel. And really, I would say it's felt like that already with Troy. It's felt that way with South Alabama. And I really, truly believe it will feel that way tomorrow night with Louisiana in here.
53rd meeting all time. Southern Miss has dominated the series. Last time the two teams met, the 2016 New Orleans Bowl, and that was a win for Southern Miss down in New Orleans. Looking at the way the 4 wins have gone, 10 points allowed against Northwestern State, 24 allowed against Tulane, and you mentioned earlier the only blemish on Tulane's schedule. 19 allowed against Arkansas State, 14 allowed last week at Texas State. It really is the defense that is driving this team right now. And we kind of maybe hesitate when we say that because we know Will Hall is an offensive guy. But they've been physical, and they've done it without the guy that was arguably their best linebacker.
Yeah, and you could make an argument, maybe two best linebackers in Swayze Bozeman and Hayes Maples. Both have been gone and lost for the season. They lost Swayze Bozeman on the opening series against Tulane out with a leg injury as well. And I joked with you off the air, but I mean this, and I have said this publicly on a football broadcast. You can talk about the transfer portal, you can talk about the recruits, but make no bones about it. The best recruit that Will Hall has signed is the youngest defensive coordinator in the country, in Austin Armstrong. He knew he wanted him the moment he got the job. He went after Austin Armstrong, who has been a member of the staff as the Raging Cajuns, and he went and got Austin Armstrong. The kid wasn't even 30. He's not 30 yet. I think he's 29 at the moment. And he went and got Austin Armstrong. And, look, I think he'll be a head coach in college football probably by the time he's 35. He is one of the brightest minds in all of college football in terms of defensive philosophy. I mean, look, Texas State had no answer. I mean, they scored 14 points last weekend, but 7 of those came on essentially in a 2-minute hurry-up offense, basically a Hail Mary that on a misplayed ball by our safety, and they scored those 7 points at the end of the ball game. Other than that, they had 7 points to speak of. That's practically unheard of in the world of college football today. That's what kind of job Austin Armstrong has done.
Jason, really appreciate you spending some time with us. Know it's going to be fun. It's going to look great tomorrow night. Southern Miss in Louisiana, 6:30 tomorrow night at the Rock.